So, do you remember this table full of unpainted Necrons? Well, I've been painting Necrons and today it's time for a showcase. It's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking and welcome to this video, and if you're new to the channel and you want to learn about Necrons and more, then please subscribe and hit the bell button to turn on all notifications so you don't miss an upload. Okay, so I have been batch painting Necrons. Actually, I've been painting all of the Necrons, or most of them, that I showed you in a previous video saying these are the models that I need to paint to finish my army. Well, I didn't paint them all. Actually, I got a little bit worn out of building the miniatures, and I built quite a few. I ended up with 2 big trays worth of miniatures to paint, and I thought, Nick, don't build anymore, get these painted. So I still have 10 Praetorians and 2 Doomsday Arcs to build, but the rest of the units on the table here are now all painted, and that's what I want to do today. I want to showcase everything that I've painted, have a close look at some of the units that I've painted, run over some of the things that I experienced during the process, and I've also made some painting tutorials on some of these units which will be coming up soon. So I really hope you enjoy having a look at my work. Okay, so here is everything painted and I'm really happy with it. I batch painted the whole lot all in one go. When I'd finished, I must admit, I thought I'd painted more than I had done, but that was down to all of the Tomb Blade weapon and war gear options, which, to be fair, was probably the most time consuming thing out of the lot. However, before we look at the Tomb Blades, I want to have a look at one of my favourite units from this batch, and that's my Heavy Destroyer conversions. And here is a close look at them. I'm really loving how these guys have come out. Now, I did make a tutorial on my conversion work, which I will link up in the description below. But as you can see, I've got some old school metal destroyers, and then I've converted one of the Tesla guns to be a heavy Gauss cannon, and I'm really loving that gun. The green rod is from the Monolith, and I have to say, if there's any example of how cool green rods look on Necron miniatures, then this is it. I personally love green rods, and I think these models here with the green rods in just look super cool. Now, in terms of painting, I painted the gun to match into my standard heavy destroyer gun, and then I painted the destroyer itself to match my old school destroyers, so I've got exactly the same paint scheme on each. I added some white and some gold to the destroyer model, and of course some green gems here and there. Then I did some glow effects on the rear section of the gun just to add a little bit more depth and detail to the Mini. The base itself is magnetised to the model, so I can take them on and off for storage, and also if you're playing a game there's less chance of the flying stem breaking. Now, talking of flying stems, let's have a look at my Canoptek Acanthrites next. Okay, so here are my Forge World Acanthrites. These are slightly converted with the little hover sections where I just basically haven't got them on those spindly things. I just don't like that. Plus, I was matching these guys into my converted Acanthrites from some old metal wraiths. I also painted them to try to match them into my metal Acanthrites as well. So the metal Acanthrites do have a Tesla gun, and I did some glow effects on that. So I did some glow effects on the big ball section of these new Acanthrites just to, like I said, try to match them in the best that I could. I'm pretty happy with them, and I think as a unit all together they look absolutely fine. In actual fact, I'm very pleased with the conversion that I did on those old school models, because I converted them just from a picture. I'd never seen the Acanthrites in real life, so yeah, very happy with them. Now, in terms of the bases, as you can see, I've got them on a small flying base, which actually isn't the base that they're supplied with. They're supplied with the old school Terminator sized base. However, I don't see that that's a matching base. For me, a flying unit should be on a flying base. So that's why I put them on here. Now, admittedly, they're slightly smaller than the original bases that they come with. So if I did ever take them to a tournament, I just have to basically blue tack them onto a slightly bigger base. But I'm not worried about that. For me, they should be on flying bases. Now, in terms of the actual model itself, those little legs are very fragile. I had to glue some which were broken when I built them, and indeed during painting where you pick them up, and I accidentally broke a couple of legs as well, so I had to re-glue them back on. It's not a problem gluing them on, but they are very fragile. Either way, I'm very happy with the results, and I think they look super cool. So I'm really looking forward to playing these miniatures all together on the table. And I did of course make a how to build Acanthrites video as well, so check that out if you're interested. The link is in the description below. Now, continuing on with flying bases, and next it's the Tomb Blades, which I painted a unit of 9, and these are all magnetised with all of the weapon options and the war gear options. Again, there's a tutorial on how to do that in the description below, but I had a lot of fun painting these, and you'll notice that mine are slightly different. I don't have that orb right in front of their face. I removed that and just converted it. Again, in the description there is a link to a video to tell you how to do that. Like I said, these did take the longest to paint because of all the weapon options. However, I think it was worth it, because who knows what will happen in the future, which gun will be the best gun option, and indeed the war gear options as well. Of course, you don't have to magnetise the war gear options, but I've done it because you can have mixed war gear options in this unit. So you could have 2 with shadow looms, and maybe the rest with nebula scopes, and you can mark with the war gear options being magnetised which models have which war gear. So it is very useful to have. And again, the bases of course are magnetised. Now, I have made a how to paint tutorial for these Tomb Blades, and that will be coming on the channel soon, so keep an eye out for that. Okay, so next up is my flyer, the Doomscythe stroke Night Scythe. No magnetisation needed. The gun and portal just push into place. However, I have magnetised the 2 tester guns just in case we go back to the old rules where you had a weapon destroyed result, and then you could take the guns off if needed. So I did magnetise them just in case. Now, this miniature was given to me and it was partially painted, so I had to strip it and then continue to build it. There was no portal in the box, however I did find one in my bits box, which was very handy indeed. There was also no driver head either, because it had been converted previously, so I had no original head. So I found one of these heads here from my bits box once again, and I used that. Now, when I get my 3rd Doomscythe, I'm going to put the normal head on there, and this guy here will be the squadron leader, because we have had squadron leader rules in the past, so if they come back, well, I'm ready to go. Now, in my mind's eye, this guy is Darth Vader, so I can imagine him in the middle with 2 other Doomscythes or Night Scythes next to him, and he's the leader. I nearly painted the vehicle black, and I nearly painted the driver's armour black to represent Darth Vader, but I thought it wouldn't suit my army very well. So I just painted his head crest black to represent he's the leader, and like I said, I was inspired by Darth Vader. Now, I didn't have a base for this, so I'm currently using my old flyer base. I have ordered some bases. Actually, I've got a big order which I'm waiting for, which I ordered just after lockdown, and it still hasn't arrived. And a lot of the order is things like bases for these units. Now, I'm planning on using my Spellcrow crystals for this Doomscythe's base. I like to go to town on my bigger bases, so my Tesseract Vault one has got little scarabs on, this one's got this derelict scene, and the new one will have these awesome looking Spellcrow crystals. Now, once again, I've made a painting tutorial on how to paint this, and that will be coming to the channel very soon. Now, next up we've got my Canoptek cloak Cryptek conversion. Really loving this, guys, looking very, very cool. I painted him exactly the same as my other Canoptek Cryptek, with the exception that I switched the purple to this grey colour. All of my HQs have different coloured cloaks, so I'd never used a grey cloak before, so I thought I would do it. And I brought that grey colour into other areas of the model, in particular on the staff and on his little tabard. And of course I painted the spider to match the spider that's on my other Cryptek, which isn't converted. Now I have the conversion video already up, again link in the description below, and I also made a painting tutorial for this guy too, which again will be coming to the channel very, very soon. But I'm really liking how he's looking, and of course he is magnetised onto the tomb spider, so I can take him off for storage. Okay, so next up are the Wargame exclusive HQ characters, which I've previously reviewed on the channel. So these are all female Necrons made of resin, and they come with the bases. Yes, the bases are a bit small now for Warhammer 40k's current climate. However, they came with the base, and they're very cool bases, and I don't really go to tournaments, so I just stuck them on these bases. If I need bigger bases, I'll just blue tack them onto a bigger base. However, let's have a closer look at them, starting with my favourite of them all, and that's the Necro Cyborg Grim Reaper. And here he is. Now, of course, all of these characters I've painted in my paint scheme, where all of my HQs have a gold colour scheme, so gold armour rather than silver. However, I think this guy would actually look really good painted silver with that black cape. However, like I said, gold's my colour, so I went for that. I'm totally loving his Reaper weapon. That looks super, super cool. And of course I painted his cape black as well. His base doesn't actually look too small because it's overlapping, and of course, like all of these Wargames exclusive models, I painted them off of the base because there's so much detail on the bases you can't really paint it all once it's glued on. However, that's the Grim Reaper, and like I said, that's my favourite one of these 4 minis, but I'd like to know what you think. Have a look at the rest of them and let me know which is your favourite. Okay, so next up is the Black Widow Lady of Destruction, which effectively is an Illuminor model. Of course, Illuminor is now getting a much bigger, newer sculpt, so this little lady isn't going to be able to replace that particular miniature, so I'm probably going to use her as maybe a Cryptek, so when I play the new Illuminor model I can use her as a Cryptek. So I think it will match in quite well and bring a little spider type theme to the army. Now in terms of the miniature, a lot of fun to paint, a little bit fiddly because of the legs. You've got to be very careful that you don't snap them. To be fair, I did snap one just by picking it up. I sort of pushed it with my thumb accidentally. However, I was able just to glue it back on because, well, resin glues quite easily with super glue. Now I was a bit concerned about gluing this model to the base after painting, however I had no trouble at all, just a bit of super glue and it stuck on there really well. Now you'll notice also that some of these bases have little skulls on the floor, and I haven't painted them like a skull because, well, I just don't do that in my Necron army. I don't have skulls anywhere. So I actually painted them like Necron heads, so I can imagine that the scarabs are coming, collecting these heads, and they're going to take them back and then repair them and reanimate the Necrons. So that is that one. Like I said, I was concerned about sticking it to the base, but I had no problems. However, let's have a look at the next one. And that is the Crypt Keeper, which I have to say, I hated this miniature. Well, to be fair, I didn't hate the miniature, but I just think it's very badly designed because the base, which is very cool by the way, the base looks like the portal of a Night Scythe, and it's got crystals growing out of the middle. The base is awesome and the model is awesome. However, the two do not go together very well indeed. It's like they're just two random things you've got to try to glue together. And I had awful trouble gluing it together. I pretty much said that I was worried about gluing it together in the review video that I did. But yeah, I had a lot of trouble. It took me about 4 attempts. I had super glue everywhere, all over the crystals, which I had nicely painted, and now they've got super glue all over the crystals at the back. So I just painted over them, made it look as good as I could. But putting all that aside, actually the model is pretty cool. And of course it's got the spider legs. So if you've got Illuminor, then you're using that other Black Widow one as your Cryptek. This could make a pretty cool looking Overlord again with those spider type legs. Now I had to leave the cloak at the back the silver colour because it was impossible to get in and actually paint on the inside of that. So I left that silver, and then I added a purple colour to some of the smaller sort of robes there at the front, and added the purple obviously onto the staff. I do that with all of my characters. Whatever colour goes onto their robes ends up on their weapons as well. Now I do have a purple cloak already, so you could say I was duplicating that purple, but I painted it a different purple. So originally it was Xerius purple, and this was painted with Genestealer purple. So I've got 2 different purples, but the purple works really well, and I had a request in the Idikbeer Overlords membership Facebook page to have one of the cloaks purple. If you're not a member and maybe you want to consider supporting me, then yeah, check the join button out to see what rewards I'm offering. Okay, so next up is this one, and that is the Ossuary Guard, once again from Wargames exclusive. So this is another female Necron. I gave her some red robes. I have used red previously, but again not this particular red. So I used Evil Sun Scarlet, and then I gave it a wash with a red wash, and then I just highlighted it with the base colour with a little bit of white added to it, and again of course I glued it onto the base. I love the double war scythe of this model. I'm really hoping that we get some rules for a character who can carry 2 war scythes. So there you go, that is everything that I've painted, and of course I've been matching everything into my paint scheme, which I started almost 20 years ago. So it's not painted to the highest standard, but it does the job and it matches my army. Let me know what you think of these miniatures. I really would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. And here are some of the relevant videos that I was talking about during this chat. And as I said, I've got the painting tutorials coming soon. Beam me up!